Hi, this is Professor Wisniewski with Chapter 20, Part 2. As I mentioned in the last recording, because of industrialization, America became a major player on the world stage. McKinley's administration allowed itself to be drawn into the annexation of Hawaii and the Spanish-American War. However, expansion in the Caribbean, Latin America, and the Pacific fit the Republicans' pro-business stance by winning the nation new access to global markets, namely China. Since the 18th century, sugar had been the major export from Hawaii. After the explorers and the missionaries, traders and entrepreneurs followed. By the 1850s, the United States had built a solid and exploitative trade network with King Kamehameha. We modernized parts of the islands, set up a plantation system, and even leased Pearl Harbor for a naval base. This served not only as an excellent trading and communication hub, but also a strategic military post. In 1893, however, revolution broke out. This stemmed from President McKinley's changes on sugar tariffs. Previously, only Hawaiian sugar entered the U.S. duty-free. Now it faced stiff competition, namely from Cuba. When the king died, his sister Liliuokalani hoped to claim the throne and restore power to the indigenous Hawaiians. A group of plotters, however, seized the opportunity to quickly take control of the island chain with the assistance of the U.S. Marines. The Queen surrendered, and lawyer Sanford Dole announced himself president of the new republic. Dole's cousin James would go on to become the founder of the Hawaiian Pineapple Company, and later Dole Food. President Cleveland refused to annex the islands because of the extra-legal nature of its revolution, and Hawaii continued as an independent republic for 5 years, until President McKinley finally approved a resolution to make it an American territory. During the transition of power, the U.S. turned to Cuba for sugar, receiving about 90% of that island's exports. But once Americans had won exclusive control of Hawaii, the U.S. placed a high tariff rate back on Cuban imports, shifting trade back to Hawaii. Faced with the Major Depression, the Cuban people revolted against their Spanish rulers. Insurgents and civilians alike were killed, and disease and starvation soon followed. American newspapers, especially those run by Joseph Pulitzer and William Randolph Hearst, portrayed these Spanish atrocities and soon used them to create exaggerated and sensational stories to sell more papers, a practice referred to as yellow journalism. These stories helped spawn anti-Spanish sentiment and public support in general to aid the Cuban people. In 1898, the USS Maine exploded in the Havana harbor, inspiring the motto, "Remember the Maine." Regardless of however it happened, 260 Americans were killed, and soon war commenced. The war lasted only 16 weeks. It was largely a naval war, and much of the combat took place in the South Pacific, especially around the Philippine Islands, then a Spanish colony. But it was the Battle of San Juan Hill in Cuba that led to an American victory. The battle catapulted Theodore Roosevelt, leader of the Rough Riders, into the national spotlight. In the end, only 385 American soldiers died in battle, but more than 5,000 died of disease and other causes. The Treaty of Paris ended the war, under which Spain granted independence to Cuba and left the Western Hemisphere. America remained on the island, however, and set up a naval base in Guantanamo Bay. In addition, the United States had won Puerto Rico, Guam, and a series of other islands in both the Caribbean and the Pacific. Finally, the United States bought the Philippines from Spain for $20 million. Guerrilla warfare in the Philippines, however, eroded support for overseas expansion. Congress passed the Teller and Platt Amendments to prevent extra-legal acquisitions of future foreign territories. The fundamental question of the 19th century remained, however. Could a government designed for a small agrarian society serve a larger industrial nation?